I'm gonna try to get through this on one take. We'll see how that works. Hey folks, welcome back. Thanks for being here. And I wanted to take just a few minutes. Hopefully this is just going to be a few minutes. I say that and then it ends up being like 30. But I'm trying to do a fairly quick video about goals, about specifically my January goals. And I know we're about a week into January already. My goal today is to get this filmed, edited, and uploaded before the end of the day. It is Wednesday, January 8th. So yeah, we're into our second week of January. So I know it's a little weird maybe to be talking about January goals, but I would like to make this a regular feature, if nothing else than to hold myself accountable. I am horrible at sticking to goals, writing them down and then sticking to them, and actually following through on them. So I want to keep myself accountable and also maybe inspire and encourage some of you who are out there, because I know if I struggle with this, other people struggle with this. I watch videos about this on YouTube and it seems to be a common issue amongst a lot of people, especially for those of us who are creative and we struggle with structure. And that is one of the places where I really struggle with life, is with structure. And right now I don't have the external structure of a job. I'm going to be putting up a video about that situation. It's not up yet. When it is, I will link it down below, and you can keep an eye out on my YouTube channel for that. But anyways, I am currently without a regular 9-to-5 job, which is great in some ways because I've been wanting to get back into acting and auditioning and stuff like that. And it's really hard to do when you have a 9-to-5 job. But I can also see that when I don't have that external structure of a place to go, a time to be there, having to be there for a certain amount of time and certain days of the week and all that, everything falls apart. My weekends tend to be messy because I don't have that structure on the weekend the way I did during the week, Monday through Friday. So to that end, I knew my life was going to be changing because the middle of last year, middle of 2019, I decided I wanted to step away from corporate America because it just wasn't working for me. And I knew I was going to need something to help work with goals because I saw how magical and powerful it was to write my budget down in 2019, and having that paper, having that accountability helped me have one of the best financial years I've ever had. I saved more than I probably have at any other year in my life. I am in a much better place financially than I would have been without that structure and that accountability of that written budget. So I wanted to do the same with my overarching life goals. And I was looking for some sort of system that I could use, a written system, so that I could hold myself accountable. And I finally decided to use what is called the PowerSheets. If you have followed goal setting at all on YouTube, you have probably heard of the PowerSheets, but in case you haven't, it is a book that's put out by a company called Cultivate What Matters. The company has a sort of religious overtone, but the PowerSheets themselves don't, if that's a concern of yours. I know there are some people who are worried about that, but the PowerSheets themselves are not overtly religious. But it's a goal setting system, and it's a pretty intense goal setting system, so it is definitely not for everyone. But I wanted to go ahead and give it a try because I watched several people over the course of 2019 use PowerSheets, and it seemed to really help them with staying accountable and having something set down in writing. It's not in stone, but it is in writing. And so being accountable to something and also putting it out on YouTube, so sharing it with your audience throughout the year, is a powerful motivator for some of us, because that's why people say, if you want to lose weight, you should get an accountability partner and things like that, because, and I can see for myself, having that accountability with my budget was so helpful. So I decided to use this. If this is too much for you, I will mention a couple things towards the end that could be good alternatives to this if this is too much. I am not going to take you through the whole process of setting up the goals. That is hours long, and I will link to a couple of videos if I remember, but I'm hoping to remember to do that. Link to a couple of videos that I watched from people that I follow who did that process, and put at least some of it on camera so that you can see that. Because these things are intense. It's a lot, and it is definitely not for everyone. It is a deep dive. It is lots of navel gazing, soul searching, writing and lots of like going over stuff a lot. So if that's not for you, this may not be for you. But I wanted to give that a try because I felt like I really needed to dive deep into the stuff that's inside me to try to figure out where exactly I wanted to go throughout this year and the rest of my life. So to that end, I did the whole system, and yes, it did take me several hours to go through the whole thing. And you start off with, one of the things I do like about this system is it is flexible, and it does give you the option throughout the year. You actually, every 3 months, you do a quarterly check-in, and you can change, you can shift, because obviously life is a living, breathing thing, and your goals can change. You know, life situations may come up that you were not anticipating, and everything has to change, and that's okay. These are not, like I said, they're not set in stone. You're writing them down, but they're not, you know, carved into a granite slab that you're putting on your grave. You can change, and that's okay. That's one of the things that I do like about this, that it does allow you to be flexible as life changes, and maybe you realize some of your goals aren't working, and you need to abandon some of them, maybe add some new ones in, and what have you. So this starts off with lots and lots of writing. You do lots of writing with what do you want to do? Just lots of, essentially, excuse the wording, word vomit. You're putting lots of stuff out on the pages. There are lots of guided questions, checklists that you're checking things off, like which applies to you, which things do you struggle with, what makes you really happy, what fires you up, what was a challenge last year, what really worked. So I like that it encourages you to look at both the things that weren't working, but also the things that did. There are 8 life categories that it has you rank, and you decide if you did really well with them this past year, or where you are right now. Are you doing good? Are you doing or are you doing horrible with it? Or somewhere on that spectrum in 8 different life categories, so that you can kind of see how your life is going, because there might be parts of your life that are going really well. Like for right now, my financial life is actually pretty good, except for the fact that I'm not earning a regular paycheck. But otherwise, like, my control of my finances has improved tremendously, so that's not a problem area for me currently. But there are other places that I'm struggling that I need to address. And so the sheets take you through like your identity, who are you, what things are important to you, what are your fears, what are the things, like I said, it has you go through good things that happened over the course of the last year, things that were a struggle, what lessons did you learn. So there's a lot of writing, there's a lot of digging and digging and digging. And over the course of all of this, you come up with what they call in the PowerSheets the word of the year. If you follow personal development, personal growth, stuff like that, you've probably heard of something like a word of the year, one little word, things like that, where you choose a word that is going to be your sort of guiding light throughout the year. That, again, doesn't have to be set in stone. It could change. So I did all of this foundational work and wrote, and then you're supposed to go back and you're supposed to look at and find the threads and find what, things you keep finding that are sort of through lines throughout all of this. And then you start writing down lists, and then you start looking at synonyms, and you start thinking about what could be your word of the year. And so I was looking, and I was expecting it would be something like brave or strong or something like that, because of how I'm going to be stepping into a life that is much more unsure than I've done in quite a while. But I kept looking at words and sort of going back over things and doing, like, again, looking up synonyms and thinking of what really was resonating with me. And what I ended up with, and this was really kind of not what I was expecting, that my word of the year ended up being messenger, which seems really odd, but it makes a kind of sense for me currently, and it could change. It may change throughout this year. It may not stay with me through this whole year, but it makes a weird sort of sense because I'm heading back into acting, and as an actor, you are a messenger. You're a messenger of the script, you're a messenger of your character. So a messenger bears a message, obviously. They're bearing information to people. And that's what an actor does. You take a script and you take the information from that script and you give that to the audience. It is a gift to the audience. So you're bearing the message of the playwright, you're bearing the message of the character to the audience. You're a messenger. Unless you wrote the script, and then I guess you're still a messenger because you're getting the message from your head to an audience, but nonetheless, you're a messenger. Part of my focus for this year is my spiritual life, and as a spiritual person or a religious person, you're a messenger. If you're a Christian, you're probably bearing the message of Christ. If you are following some other sort of religious or spiritual path, you're bearing that message in some way, even if it's not overtly trying to teach people. Your life could be a message. Maybe you're bearing light to people. Maybe you are being a bridge or something like that. A lot of faith or spiritual paths have some sort of message about, being light or being a support to people or showing kindness, things like that. So that actually does make sense, to be a messenger. And as a person on YouTube, I consider myself a messenger. Even something as simple as the skincare videos that I do are bearing a message to people, because I was told that there are people out there who are struggling to know what to do with their skin. And I, as a woman who's moving into middle age, I'm finding that things are changing, and I'm having to change things and look for new things. And so I am bearing that message to people, because I know that there are people struggling with that, just like I'm struggling. And I enjoy bearing that message to people to help them sort of weed through all of the confusing information out there. So messenger, for right now, makes sense, as weird as it sounds. So once I came on the word of the year, then you take that into your goals. And this particular system has room for up to 8 goals. They recommend that you limit your goals. You don't try to create like 20 goals, because if you are like me and you've tried to do goal setting in the past, you've probably done too many, and then it's hard to focus, and then you just lose all interest in it, and then it just fails miserably. So I did choose 8 goals, and let me really quickly go through what those 8 goals are for this year currently. And I'm going to admit that some of these goals are a little bit nebulous, but I'm trying to make them I'm trying to solidify them in each month. So yes, I agree that some of these are probably a little too broad, but I am learning how to tighten them down. This is a work in progress. Goal number 1 is to become a working actor. And I do have action steps in this month, January of 2020, to work towards that. Goal number 2 is to create a regular spiritual practice, and goal number 3 goes along with that, and that is to create a regular prayer life. So those really are intertwined. Goal number 3 is to increase physical strength and flexibility. Goal number 4, goal number 5, which was originally goal number 6, was to grow YouTube. I think it escaped my attention at first simply because YouTube has become a bit of a habit with me. I've been posting a weekly video for several months now, so I've actually kept up with that. I am trying to increase that though, and increase my skills and communication skills and all that fun stuff. And then finally, my final goal is to work on cultivating filmmaking techniques. So working on my filmmaking skills and moving beyond just being an actor, but also being a filmmaker, maybe experimenting with some things on my YouTube channel. That goal is not going to be actively worked on in January, I don't think, because that's probably a little too much. But for January, what I decided to focus on were three specific things that were going to work for both YouTube and also my acting career. One of them was that I had bought a Pinterest course for business people, entrepreneurs, people like that, who are using Pinterest for business purposes. And I wanted to learn how to do that. And I thought I could the focus of the course is for blogs, but I thought it could also work for YouTube. And so I'm going to be working on that. I've actually done all of the relevant work in the course, and now I'm going to go back and start at the beginning and start implementing those techniques that she lays out. And I will link to that. It's by a woman named Melyssa Griffin. I'll link to that down below. So that's concrete step number 1, is to work on that and begin implementing that. I also have 2 written things that will go towards the working actor thing. One of them is a workbook that I bought back in 2010, that unfortunately is not available anymore, so I don't know how much I can talk about it specifically. It's copyrighted material, but the man who made it has since passed away, so I'm gonna have to look into that. But it's all about how to do your business as an actor. It's not about theory of acting, it's business of acting, which is where I fail miserably. I'm horrible at business. So it's all about, the steps you need to take to figure out what your type is, to figure out how to market yourself, how to present yourself to casting directors and producers and people like that, so that you can get work as a working actor. And then there is another item that I have that is currently available, and I'll link to that down below. It's from a website called Actor CEO. I believe that's the correct site, but I will link it down below. It's the 5-day, 5-month challenge. 5 days where you put a practice in place. It's setting up the foundation of your business as an actor. Again, it kind of sounds similar to the workbook that I referred to, but it is 5 days, and then it gives you a plan to work on for 5 months to work towards being a working actor, presenting yourself as a working actor, as a business person. So those two things are very concrete. So all 3 of those things are really concrete, specific things that I'm working on throughout the month. Also, a couple of physical things that I'm working on are I bought from a group of folks called Fitness Blender. It's a couple here on YouTube who have been putting out fitness videos for several years. They have built up a huge following. They have a really great website where you can buy programs. And because, again, I have trouble with follow through, I decided to buy a strength training program from them. And I am doing that all this month, and so far I've kept up with it. I also signed up for Yoga with Adrienne, her 30-day challenge. She's been doing this for the past, 4, 5, 6 Januaries, where she has a 30-day challenge, and there are 30 days of yoga. And so far, I've kept up with that as well. I haven't done it today yet. I did my strength training for today, but I haven't done the yoga, but that should not be a problem to fit in. So there are some physical things, some flexibility things. I mentioned strength and flexibility, so those 2 things go into that. The working actor, also for spiritual stuff, that's mostly a daily thing where I have some readings that I'm doing. I have a scripture writing that I've been doing for the last several years, actually. So I have that I do daily, and I also have down as one of my daily action items to set aside some non-meal prayer time. That's been my biggest struggle this month. I don't know what that says about me. But let me go ahead and put up a shot of what the PowerSheets calls a tending list. This is a list you have every month where you put down things that you're working on monthly, weekly, and daily. So you have monthly, weekly, and daily action items, and you can keep track of if you have done these monthly, weekly, or action items. And I saw somebody take this tending list and put it on the calendar for the PowerSheets. PowerSheets now include a calendar. Apparently in previous years they didn't have a calendar for each month, but now they do. And so what she did was she took her tending list and she put her items on there to sort of map them out through the month. And I thought that looked really helpful. And so I have done that for January. I will also put a shot of that up here so you can take a look at that and see what that looks like. I did not put the daily things. I am putting those in one of my planners as far as the daily action items. But my top priority for this month is routines, because since I do not have that external structure of a job, I need to set up routines. That's where my days fall apart. And actually I've found that, people talk about morning routines a lot. I find that my mornings fall apart the evening before because I don't have an evening routine in place. So that is one of the things I'm working on this month, set up an evening routine so that flowing into the next morning, I can set up then a morning routine and not feel like I've frittered away half the day rolling out of bed and eating breakfast and then puttering around and then finally getting started on stuff that matters. Another principle I'm trying to look at is doing big rocks first. And there is a whole story behind big rocks. The gist of it is there's this professor, and I don't know if this is a real story, apocryphal, or whatever, but professor's up in front of a class, has a big glass jar, puts in big rocks up to the top, asks the class, hey, is this full? And they say yes. So the professor takes some smaller rocks and fills in. Okay, is it full? Yes. Then takes smaller, like pebbles, and fills it up. Is it full? And they're starting to catch on. They say no. Then puts in sand, and then puts in water. The point is, you do your big rocks first. You do the important stuff first, and that's where I usually fail. I don't do the important stuff first, and then it ends up getting pushed to like the end of the day, and I'm rushing to try to get it done, or it just doesn't get done. So I'm trying to work on that, get those big rocks done first, get the important stuff done. And that is where writing stuff down. Like I said, for my budget, it was magical. It really helped so much to get that written down and have that accountability, have it in black and white in front of me, or blue and white because I like using blue ink. But just having that accountability, and that's what I'm hoping with the goals. And as far as accountability goes, putting up these videos is part of that accountability. even if I'm the only one who's watching them, just knowing that I'm putting it out there and somebody's probably going to see it and ask me about it and say, are you doing this? Or, you know, what did you do? So my, what I'm planning on doing for the rest of this year is at the end, towards the end of January, I will put up a recap video, and then that will also be a video where I go into what my goals for February will be. So it'll be a 2-for-1 video. So the rest of the year will be done in that way. So I can just do it as one video. Goals, how did I do on my goals for the month, the current month, and then what are my goals for the next month? What do I want to do? This year is a huge experiment for me. There are a lot of things that are, in some cases, totally out of my hands. I don't know what the acting market is like. I don't know how much of a place there will be for somebody like me. So there are, any of you out there who are actors, you know, or any kind of creative, you know, there are a lot of forces that are out of your hands, but there are things that you do have control over. And that's something that we often undermine ourselves with, is we try to convince ourselves that really there's so much that's out of our control, and it's, you know, I don't have a whole lot of power, but we probably have more power than we think. And that's what one of those workbooks that I was talking about previously talks about. He talks about how, you know, a lot of actors fail because they don't do the work. They don't run their acting career like a business. And so they don't make it, not because there's not a place for them, not because they're, you know, yeah, it can be tough, and even people who are very talented and apply themselves may still not make it, but you have a better chance of making it if you run it like a business. And so that's my plan for this year, but it is a big experiment. There's a lot of stuff that's up in the air that I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I think having these written goals are going to help keep me accountable, and also putting it out there into the world and using that to keep me accountable is going to help as well. I will do my very best to link everything I possibly can down below. Videos, people, websites, all sorts of stuff. Oh, if the PowerSheets are too much, there are a couple other things that I have heard spoken of. I actually have one of them. It's the Clever Fox goal planner. I actually won it in a giveaway, so I will link to that down below. Again, you can find some videos on people doing like flip throughs of them. It is a 3-month goal planner, and it is undated, so you can start it anytime, and it's not quite as in-depth as PowerSheets. And also another one that's fairly new, I think this is the first year they've put it out, is called Moxie Life. And the cool thing about that is you can go to their website and sign up to get access to some of their goal setting stuff for free. So you don't even have to buy the planner to do some of the goal setting stuff, which is pretty cool. I think that's really generous of them. So I will link to that down below as well. If I have time, I will try to link to some videos about each of those. So if the PowerSheets are just too much, if it's too overwhelming to think of doing your goal setting that way, there are a couple other options. I'm sure there's like bajillions of others. There are lots of other goal setting plans and processes and all sorts of stuff out there. Things you can buy, things you could do yourself, and everything. So yeah, that's it. I'm hoping that this video isn't too long. I'm hoping that it was helpful to somebody. If nothing else, I'm hoping it will be helpful to me to keep myself accountable. If you liked this video, I would love it if you could click the like button, because that is a wonderful YouTube thing to do. If it's your first time here, I'd love it if you would subscribe and click the notification bell so that you can be notified when I post my next videos. I will also have a subscribe button over here. I will link to some other videos and maybe playlists. I will link to some of my budget videos, because I did do several of those if you want to see what that process was like, because like I said, it was super magical. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I so appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you later. Take care.